We are live.
Okay, we are calling our Wednesday, December 16th, 2020 meeting back to regular session. Everyone, please silence your electronic devices, and we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
and which
To the republic for which it
one
stands,
nation,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with
liberty,
liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have no additions and deletions to the agenda since Friday meeting. I need a motion for the acceptance of the minutes of the December 2nd, 2020 BOE meeting.
Aye.
Mrs. Burns, Mr. Hislop, all in favor?
Aye.
And now we have special awards and presentations.
Pete, who's in my lower left corner?
We're waiting for one more student to join us, but you can see Mr. Petuzzo, our high school band director. Tyler, hello, how are you?
Look at that fire behind them. What is that? A nice Christmas tree. It looks beautiful.
Fireplace going in the background.
You made him a nice fire.
You're right. I did. I worked hard for that fire.
We'll give him another moment to see if there. Well, no, it's Tyler again.
Oh, Jared Lampkin.
Yes, excellent. So, 32 years ago, I was graduating high school from Snederow, and I was a late teen musician, and very fortunate to have been selected for an amazing honor that allowed me to perform with world-class musicians. And we are joined by Jared and Tyler, who also, of all the musicians in New York State, have had the opportunity to join this fantastic opportunity. Been selected above thousands and thousands and thousands of musicians in New York State to perform in the All-State, I believe both you guys in the symphonic band. Yeah. And just an amazing recognition. Now, obviously, this year is very different. And we talk about the many ways that our kids have been deprived of those things that are the rites of passage. Mr. Petuzzo and I were talking the other day. It really is amazing to play with musicians that are the best musicians in the state. So we know that I think Tyler is Tyler is not going to music. Jared's going into music. Do you get that right? So Jared's going to have the opportunity to move on and continue to do that. And you know what? All of us who have been musicians carry music in our hearts. So whatever Tyler decides to do will be fine. I wanted to, before I give them their certificates, I wanted to play a quick example of both of these great musicians. They recorded a little bit, not knowing that we'd ask them to actually come to the board meeting. I'm sure they would have performed for us live too. But they recorded a little bit. And I was going to play Tyler's first because I kind of like he gives a little introduction as to his audience here. So let me bring that up. Hold on a second.
I'm Tyler Levine, and I've been playing trumpet for 7 years now, all of those years being with the RCS music department. Throughout those years, I've realized how much of an amazing music department that we really have, giving students like me opportunities to play in different venues and with different groups of people due to their hard work they put in each and every single day. So a big round of applause to them. But today, I'll be playing a jazz solo called Bird Blues by Jim Snederow, and I hope you all enjoy. Thank you again, and I hope you all enjoyed.
It's not easy to play a tune without the ensemble in the background. I know that song, so I could hear the whole ensemble in the background. And Jared actually, I skipped his little introduction there, but Jared's piece is actually when he said he was preparing for his auditions for college, right? Yep. What schools are you thinking about?
I'm applying to Cleveland Institute of Music, Eastman School of Music, Peabody Conservatory, and New England Conservatory.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's Jared's piece. What's the name of the piece? Do you remember?
It's a technical etude, so it's titled Rose Etude Number 10.
My favorite.
Watching you watch it was very fun. That's awesome.
They both make it look really easy.
Yeah, for certain.
Great job. Congratulations, guys.
Gentlemen, nice job.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
And I wanted to share the certificate with you guys, even remotely. So hold on a quick second, and I'll show you your certificates. And we'll be sure to get them over to you. So for being selected to the New York State School Music Association 2020 All-State Symphonic Band, Jared and Tyler. Congratulations to you both. It's a fantastic accomplishment.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, guys.
Congratulations. Good luck.
Great job. Congrats.
Okay.
I'm sure they don't want to hang out with us for the rest of the meeting, but they can, you know.
Maybe, maybe not. I'm just going to reach out to our architect and have him hop on, okay?
Yep.
Bye, guys. Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
All right,
Suso.
thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jared. Now we have 3 Brians.
All right, John Sharkey will be on with us momentarily. As through the spring, the music department's been practicing with a number of different ways for students to still be able to perform, and with different software. And I have to say, in the spring, I saw some of the work that students were submitting to teachers, and ironically, what both John and Shelley said is that, you know how we can all be self-conscious when we're performing in front of other people? Some of the kids, while they were at home, some of the things that they were doing were just breathtakingly amazing. Kids who may ordinarily be quiet or be absolutely happy being part of the ensemble and staying in the background were submitting solos and musical works that just brought tears to your eye. Just amazing to see. So some good things came out of having to go remote, but it was a pleasure to see it. Welcome, John.
Just got my mic on. Good evening. How's everybody?
Great.
Good. Good. We're no snow here yet. That's a good thing.
So Joanne and I met with you last week, talked a little bit about the progress of the building conditions survey, and we discussed at our last board meeting as well, that this is the foundational information that we would use in pre-planning for future projects, but also as a mandate for New York State. Every 5 years, we need to be submitting these. And New York State, ironically, just printed out a new calendar for all schools in New York State, like restarting the clock. And we were in that first batch of restarting the clock. But thankfully, it's pretty much on the timeline we were on already. So we're in a good spot, an appropriate spot for us to go through this process. And John and his team have been traversing around our district for hours and hours and hours and hours. And he's going to share out the process, a lot about the process and where we'll go from here based on some of the information they've gathered.
Okay. So, well, it's okay to present the...
Yes.
It up on the, okay. Let's see. Okay. All right. Is everybody able to see that? The report?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So I think some of you have seen some of the information here already, but we'll go through a few. Might repeat a few things, but we could have some new information. So first, we'll talk about the 2012 Building Condition Survey, the Phase 3 scope of work, and a potential 2021 capital project. The next slide is the 2020 Building Condition Survey. Let me just put this in full screen a little better. So the 2020 Building Condition Survey, we've done all the field work. It's completed. We've walked through all the buildings, got all the information we needed. We've filled out the Building Condition Survey forms. All the field work was required to be done before the end of the year. It does not have to be submitted until March 1st. So we do have some time. We intend to sit down with the district and go through it one more time just to make sure all the information is in there. Just go back and reference some more numbers, make sure everything's good. But we have some time there. So we got finished quite a bit earlier than we needed to, but we wanted to make sure we got everything before the weather changed. We wanted to get up on the roofs and see the sites before the snow came, which held off till today. The 5-year next step in that process is the 5-year plan, which we've already started to undertake. We started to take a look at some of the priority items that the district was looking at, and also the priority items that the state education would be looking for. In particular, because of COVID, they're very interested in any projects that come up to the state now have to do with ventilation. So we're looking at that throughout the district. We're also looking at some of the items like paving upgrades, ADA access. There's some issues with the pool air handler and filtration systems that are on the list of needing to be replaced. And also some areas in some of the schools where SED has changed the regulations on carbon monoxide detectors near boiler rooms. So we need to add some carbon monoxide detectors in a few areas. So we're taking a look at that as well. If anybody wants to jump in with any questions, please feel free. The next slide is the building condition district-wide summary, which is kind of a report card of the district. It shows all the buildings and everything listed by SED category. If you see the red letters across the top, those are unsatisfactory items. Unfortunately, the way SED labels everything is if you have one item in a school, for instance, a unit ventilator that's not working, and you list it unsatisfactory, it makes the whole building unsatisfactory. So it's not a big issue as long as you're taking care of those items. So we have those at the high school, middle school, A.W. Becker and Ravena-Coeymans, which is mostly with ventilation that we're also looking at as far as the prioritization items. So if you look on the item, I apologize for it's a little grainy, but back when you did your 2015 building condition survey, you had roughly $18 million worth of need. Right now, you're at the end of this process at 2021, you have about $12 million worth of need district-wide if you wanted to get everything up to 100%. So you've taken care of quite a bit of work over the last 5 years. But as anything, a house or a school, as years go by, more things come back on the list. So doing a good job. Yes.
Just so you know that we can't read any of the numbers because it's so small. So if when you do point things out, just please read them to us as well. It's just good.
Okay. Yes,
thank you.
I will do that. Absolutely. So so just wanted to make the clarification that 2015 you had about $18 million worth of need. Right now there's about $12 million. All the other numbers, I'll forward this onto the district so it can be passed out. But there's so much information in there, it's tough to get it into a format where you can see it.
John, could you do me a favor? Just read off the big categories, because I think anybody who's been through this process in the last 5 years is familiar with some of the items that are on there. But if you just read the big categories, that'd be helpful.
Sure. Yep. Well, first thing we look at is space adequacy in the district, which you guys are in good shape for that. And then we look at site utilities, obviously site sanitary, sports facilities. We look at pavement, sidewalks, everything outside the building. Then we look at the building structure, foundations, columns, roofs and ceilings. And then the building envelope, exterior walls, parapets, roofs, skylights, those kind of items. Then you go on to building interiors, where we look at the finishes. If there's any hazardous materials in there, we notify that. Interior doors, stairs, elevators, just to make sure that you have all that in ADA access. The next slide is pretty much a continuation of the same thing, where we look at the HVAC systems, which we spoke about. We also look at the plumbing systems, all the bathrooms, fire suppression systems in the kitchens, and then the electrical systems throughout the buildings. And then the last couple of items are the accessibility, and then the last few categories are just the general appearance of your buildings, cleanliness, acoustics, indoor air quality. As far as environmental, you guys are doing a great job. Your buildings are well maintained, but unfortunately the ventilation systems, some of the unit vents and things like that are past their useful life. Bill's been doing a great job maintaining them, but at some point, they need to be replaced, and it's harder to get parts for older equipment like that. And then all the way at the bottom is a category that we carry on our spreadsheet. SED, the building condition survey, they really don't care too much about, believe it or not, educational program or sports programs, things like that, but we like to keep that category there. So if there's educational improvements that need to be done, that's not missed. So we carry that in our spreadsheets. Next slide is the phase 3 scope of work, which in the original phase 3 from the previous architects, if you look at the bottom of the plan there, the shaded area, at each elementary school, the intent was to go in and do a gut renovation of the entire main office suite, to upgrade it. And from what we've gathered through the meeting minutes and discussions, the main intent was to get a secure main lobby and to get a conference room next to the principal's office and close the copy room and try to get some additional space. And we believe that the plan up above that, that we're showing accomplishes all that without having to renovate the entire suite. I mean, I think those spaces are in fairly decent shape, so we can go through there and do some, more moderate renovations and achieve everything the district is looking for. So we're in the process of nailing that down and making sure that does work. But it looks like you could have some significant savings there if we do that. And the other part of the phase 3 scope of work was the renovation of 3 classrooms at the middle school, food and consumer science classroom, a special education classroom, and an art classroom. The drawings that went up to the state education department showed these renovations. However, I believe since then there's been some discussion on the food and consumer science room that they wanted more of a teaching culinary kitchen with a little more advanced equipment, so to get the students better prepared for 20th century cooking and working in restaurants rather than just the old-fashioned home cooking. So we're looking at that. The equipment and tables and supporting equipment for that area is a little more expensive, but I think the savings from doing less renovations at the main office area would offset that, and we're in the process of looking at that. So those were also items that were listed early on when you first started these projects as being on the wish list to be done. So we're trying to continue on with that and make sure that work gets done. So the schedule, we met with the district yesterday to talk about some of the scope items. We had a little bit of a discussion about what should be priorities in the building condition survey. I plan on doing a more detailed prioritization list of, we basically list the items as, let me see my category here. We put prioritization as items that you must do, the district must do to make a building satisfactory. Then there's a list of items where you should do, which are good ideas to do to bring things up to code and also make sure that things aren't past their useful life. And then there's a category of nice to do. So we're trying to work that out and put those into different columns. And then after that, we decide when those things get done, whether they're done next year, the year after, or 5 years down the road. So it's a bit of a process to do that. It's not part of the building condition survey that SED requires, but it's an excellent tool for the district to be able to look at those items and categorize them. So we're in the process of that. The phase 3 work, early on in the discussions, was that if we decided to do that work, it would need to be done in the summer of 2022 because of the 10 to 12 week time frame that the state education department takes to review plans. I did have a conversation with them today, and they said that they would expedite the project for us since a portion of it was already submitted. So they basically said they'll cut that review time down to 2 weeks, which is fantastic. So if the district decides they do want to do that and try to get this phase 3 work done for next summer, we need to begin the process pretty quickly, but it is doable.
So hold on, I have a question. So that phase 3 work, are we under some kind of time guidelines of when we had the bond or the bond vote and when we have to do this project, or no?
No, there's no time guideline at all. No, you can. We've done projects 5 years out from the original bond vote and not had issues. I don't know farther than that if there's an issue, but as far as SED is concerned, it's allocated, it's approved, so you can do it in as many phases as you want.
Okay. Joanne or Brian, is there any specific reason of why we would not try to get this done during 2021?
Well,
John?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, John, Joanne, and I actually talked about that this past week. It is possible, but the limitations are really to be able to hit the ground running. We would be best served to have all plans, adapted plans in place now, and be getting our bids out on the street in by May, John?
Yeah, I actually did a real quick sketch here, and I think if we hit the ground running, in the next week or so and started having meetings with, whoever needs to make the final decisions, I would love to get it out on the street at the end of March and bid it in mid-April. to get good pricing. And then that gives the contractors time to order materials. I called around for instance, some of the kitchen equipment, there's 8 to 10 week lead time on some of that equipment. So the earlier it would be out on the street, the better. So I would shoot for mid-April for a bid date.
So it is plausible to go out in 2021. And when we initially talked, John wasn't sure of timelines. He had initially said if we were willing to perhaps open 2021 without some of those rooms being finished, then we could definitely get it done. But yeah, the only concern that we had was to ensure that whatever adapted plans we have, and remember, in order to do phase 3, we've got board members who've come on in the midst of this construction project. Phase 3 is the last part of the bond. In order to do any of this work, it needs to be the foundation of it needs to be in what we went out to the voters for. So, for instance, we said renovations of the front of the elementary schools, fax room, and art rooms. We couldn't decide to build a freestanding gazebo. We couldn't decide to repave the parking lot. The money has to be spent in the areas and for the purpose of what we went out to the voters for. So it's a matter of adapting some of the large-scale stuff that was maybe set forth in phase 3 and deciding what's appropriate for us. And if we can do that in a timely enough way, then we actually could go ahead in 2021.
I guess my thought about this is, when we look at a potential next capital project and going out to vote in 2021 or 2022 is, how do we go out and ask the voters to approve another bond and we haven't finished the first one yet? I just think we have to get this first one done in order for us to put the next vote out. And that's why I would push for it to try to get done in 2021, because if we push this third phase to 2022, then that means we're going to push the next projects to 2023. And then I think that's where we're going to come into time constraints, maybe with that reserve fund, correct? Capital reserve, where we had to use it in a certain time, or can we extend that?
Yeah, that's going to be part of what I talk about also today, Teddy, because one of the things that we'll most probably will do is to restructure the capital reserve as part of a referendum this May.
Okay.
Which will take that time constraint away.
So, I guess that's my thoughts or opinion. I guess, does anybody else have any other concerns or thoughts about that?
No, thank you for bringing that up, because as we were reading this, I was trying to piece those two pieces together, and I felt like I was missing something. So I appreciate that we haven't completely wrapped up the previous before we're looking at what needs to happen again in the future. So, yeah, I think that this is a tough sell given the economic outlook, and making sure that we can confidently go out there and say that we've done everything in our power to wrap up the first project efficiently and checking as many of the boxes as it was designed to do before we went out and asked for anything additional.
And I think what's going to be important is to say how we came within budget. There's still no change to the taxpayer, because we had offset, I believe, some loans that were expiring and new loans or bonds starting, that the impact on taxpayers when we did this first project was minimal or nothing. And I think that's going to be the important part on any project, is how minimal the tax impact is on the taxpayers for any project. So I think that we have to show how we did in this big construction project moving forward into the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which, I think we've done good. And I believe everything we've done has been, when it comes to the financials, we've been online to what we said we were going to be.
One of the things that makes this summer much more feasible right now is the conversation that John had with Sigrid today. We didn't have that information there today when we met, so that certainly does put our district in a different position as far as when we could possibly get this done. So that is good.
Yeah. I guess keep working on it and see what we can come up with.
So as a component of this, we basically, since we've just been dealing with the wrap up of some of the phase 2 work right now, we haven't actively met our construction committee. we need to reform that and have some active involvement in the planning stages. So what you'll see as we move forward is the board won't be necessarily getting a detailed report of all the elements like John just shared with us. Instead, we'd be talking about it at the committee level, and we'd be bringing back to you the big ideas from that for your consideration. But the construction committee gets to get down to the nitty gritty. They get to visit the sites and look at drawings and talk through, meet with different parties and work on the potential foci, whatever the right word is, the potential focus for our next work that we're going to do. So as soon as we turn into January, we're going to be starting on that.
Okay, that's the end of my presentation, other than the potential capital project. We talked about the next one, potentially being sometime in December of 2021 or May of 2022. The only downside of waiting to May of 2022 is that you would lose that summer, obviously, of 2022, and a project wouldn't be able to be done until 2023. Whereas if you did decide to go in 2021, some small projects could be broken off, and if there was emergency projects or things that needed to get done in a hurry, they would be able to be done in 2022.
Yeah, I'm inclined. I agree with the board. It needs to be our best possible effort to get this phase 3 done with fit and finish the way it's supposed to be before we go out for any bond. That means we would have been delivering on our promise to the voters. And we have much more solid ground to stand on. So we can do it. We can do it. It's important to note for the board, anybody who's tried to do any construction, domestic construction around your home, you realize that the cost of construction materials and the skilled labor to do it has skyrocketed. John and we talked about that a little bit this week, and it has had some effect on the work in schools as well. I think even more so than the cost, the lead time on things has just out and out and out. Think of all the things that were not at the grocery store that we needed. Put that in the context of doorways and windows and tiles and those businesses that had to shut down due to the pandemic, or they didn't have the transportation to deliver parts or components of what they were making due to the pandemic. So John told us a couple stories when we were talking this week, things that were completely done, but one part, therefore they were not useful at all. So these are tough times.
Yep. Yeah, so that's why I tried to call around a little bit, to some of the major portions like the culinary equipment, just to see where they're at. And they're pretty confident that, the 8 to 10 week lead time has been good. It may get better, as things start to open up. I think they're as bad as they're going to be now. I think prices are going to come back down a little bit. If anybody's been to Lowe's or Home Depot, you can see that plywood, everything is doubled in cost. And I think it's only because of, things that are going on and in factories that were shut down. But as we start opening up again, things will get better.
Yeah. Any other questions for John? Okay, thank you, John, very much.
Okay, no problem. Everybody get home safe if you're not home already.
Thanks, John.
All right, good night.
Good night.
That's all we have for presentations, correct?
That's correct.
So we will go on to our agenda. I need a motion for one or all of the business considerations.
A motion for all, please.
Okay, do we have a second?
Aye.
Mrs. Burns, any discussion?
Thanks for the donations.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. We have a donation from the Laborers International Union for school supplies and
6.4.
64. And we have a donation from Mr. and Mrs. Granick for the middle school for families in needs this holiday season. So we thank both of these people for the donations. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion pass. So I need a motion for one or all of the personnel considerations.
Motion for all, please.
Okay, do we have a second? Mrs. Burns, do we have any retirements? Yes, we have retirements. Want to recognize our retirees. I believe we have two of them, Kelly McGillicuddy and Maureen Perrott. Both have put the retirement in for June 30th, 2021. So we thank them for their service and their time at RCS. Hopefully I didn't think of any. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we have 8.1 and 8.2 are informational items only. I have nothing to report. Any other board members have anything they want to discuss or bring up or report on? No? We will turn it over to Dr. Bailey.
You're muted, right?
Yep.
As you've watched the news, you've seen what's been happening in our area. Between Thanksgiving and now, we've had a significant increase in positive COVID cases, and we've dealt with a number of issues in our buildings on a revolving basis. Sometimes it's grade levels, sometimes it's an entire building that's affected. And as a reminder, when we close, almost always it's due to a lack of staffing. So in other words, enough staff have come in close contact with someone who's tested positive, therefore they have to quarantine, and if we don't have enough staff to supervise or transport children, we can't open. As another quick reminder, the Department of Health's guideline is that if you are in a room or in a space with someone who's tested positive for 15 minutes or more, you are contact, and therefore you get caught in that net of quarantine and contact tracing. The Department of Health they've been working their tails off. There's a couple people there that are so good about communicating directly with us, which is enormously helpful. And as you noticed, I think yesterday there were 3,300 people in the county who were in quarantine at this time, with about 190 to 200 new cases of COVID per day. The Department of Health needs to track every single one of those people, either by communicating with them to place them in quarantine. Sometimes they track them while they're in quarantine and then they release them. The process has not been perfect, but we're very grateful for all the work that they have been trying to do. A quick update on yellow, orange, and red. I talked to you last time about what would happen if we went to a zone in this area. The criteria is still that if we're a yellow zone, we're required to test 20% of our students and staff who are in person over a 2-week period. That guidance has not changed. However, they recently changed orange and red. They used to require school districts to close. That is no longer the case. Instead, don't ask me why, if we become an orange zone, we're required to test 20% of our in-person population over a month. And if we're red, we need to test 30% of our population over a month. And we are, one of the things that you approved tonight is our MOA with the Albany County Department of Health to allow us to conduct those tests in person on campus. And we anticipate working with BOCES. We're going to hire a medical professional to assist us with that. And as I mentioned before, I think that the tests that we would be giving, first of all, families would need to consent to that test. So we'd be sending consent form homes for families to fill out with a description of what the test looks like. It is in the context of tests, it's a relatively non-invasive one. It is just inside the nostril rather than up inside the brain. It's just inside the nostril, and the results come back relatively quickly. And it's about 260 people in our district would get us to 20% over a 2-week period.
Brian, will teachers be required to do that?
We Actually, according to labor law, we can make a condition of employment that all staff are tested. I think that we will be able to access 20% of our population, staff and students, by asking folks to consent. But it is important to note that labor law, we can mandate our workforce, which is 425 people, to test if we require that, make it a requirement of employment. That's not necessarily where we're going to choose to go right now, Pete, because I think we can hit our 20% mark without needing to do that. Any other questions about COVID?
Yeah, but does it have to be different people? Like, I mean, if we test, are we going to test 20% within a week, within a month, and when do you have to get a new 20%?
If we test 20%, and it's supposed to be random selection, but really their random selection just means it can't be a discriminatory selection. In other words, we can't choose all the males. We can't choose only kids at Peter B. It needs to be a relatively random sample. And if we test the 20% and we're below the county average for positives, we no longer have to test. Schools have demonstrated that they are one of the safest places for people to be at this time because of all the protocols that we've been following. So, I mean, as we have a discussion as different school districts, we believe strongly that we will be below what the average is in our communities. It takes an unbelievable amount of time to contact trace and to reach out to all the families. We reach out to all the families who have are a component of contact tracing, either through direct phone call, a robocall, follow-up emails, and we did set up a COVID hotline. We had a discussion last time. We have a COVID phone number and a COVID email that people can reach out to in the event that they don't get the answers that they need. For instance, if they receive a robocall and it's on a Saturday, for instance, this last contact tracing we did was Saturday and Sunday. If there's no one to talk to, at least there's some place that they can reach out to. Which reminds me, before I leave COVID, the other thing that we did based on our discussion at the last board meeting is every school web page on the yellow bar has a button for school schedules. And we also added it to the app. So if you were in a building and you clicked on the menu, school schedule is right on there. So everyone should be able to find the schedule for their building as needed. So I'm glad that you recommended that last time. Any other questions about COVID? We discussed some of the process that we were considering for budget process this year, budget advisory committee. I'm going to assemble a diverse committee of about 24, 25 people. It's going to have members of our units, community members, and family members. And as I mentioned before, I would like it if some of the board members, perhaps the Finance and Audit Committee members or others, would consider participating. The model is going to be 6 meetings, 1 every 2 weeks, beginning the first week in January. They're 90 minutes and they start at 6:30. So 6:30 to 8, they're virtual. And what we'll be doing is we'll be hearing some of the presentations that would have traditionally been given. We'll be creating questions and reviewing the responses from our greater community about the priorities for our district, what we expect to see programmatically, how that will translate into our facilities and to our overall budget process. And then the information that this committee discusses will be brought back to the board. And then from that, the board will be recording into the presentations, but the board is welcome to also, if they need to see or want to see additional information, we can bring that right to a board meeting in order to do that. I'll be sending out an invitation to board members, so anyone who would like to join may do so. The first meeting will be Thursday, January 7th. Last 2 things quickly. You may have seen this flyer. Not sure. It's gone up on our website and it's gone out in email, and I think they may have started to send it backpack mail to elementary kids. But being very aware of the limitations that COVID has caused for our students, we wanted to get a kickoff of celebrating our senior class. So the first of these events is a senior winter parade, which is happening this Saturday. And what they're going to do is they're going to start at the high school, decorate their cars, wear costumes, and do a drive around the district. It'll last about an hour, although they're going to be going slow. I'm guessing it's going to be more like an hour and a half. They have a set route that they're going to follow. They're going to go up toward Becker around that way and end up coming back down through Peter B. And we also included both elementary schools for families who don't happen to be on the route, who want to see these folks go by. They're welcome to just go park in one of the elementary school parking lots and be able to wave to our seniors as they go by. It's around this time of year the senior class would have had the snowball, which is like their winter dance. That's obviously not happening, so a number of seniors, along with the class advisors and a few more adults, have been working on ways to figure out how to acknowledge that this is their finest hour at RCS. We need to do some things to, let them know that we've been very appreciative of the work that they've done for us here, and what a unique finish for them as well, the last year's class and this year's class. And this flyer is up on our website as well. So if you wanted to see if it was going by your place, you're welcome to do that. And the last thing I want to talk about is snow days. I am the Grinch who stole snow days. And I wanted to explain why. I did send out a communication to all families. We have 5 emergency closure days that we can use any given year. And we've used 4 of them. We used 2 prior to the start of school in order to do some professional development to prepare to open our schools safely. And we used 2 of them when we had the emergency closure due to the power outage, which leaves us 1 day. That 1 day would ordinarily be used for a contingent holiday against Memorial Day weekend. What we know is that we can't always predict whether we can go remote or whether we can stay open, or whether we have to close completely. As the windstorm demonstrated, the whole region was out for a day or more, a day or 2, because we all lost power. If we have to take 1 more snow day, that means a day of no student attendance. That means that the day before Memorial Day weekend will be gone. And there's a great likelihood that we will have to use that. We want to hold that in our pocket as long as humanly possible. What we know is our buildings and our students and staff know how to go remote. So while we're awaiting the time when we can't do that, we're going to go remote. So with a foot of snow coming tomorrow, there's a very good chance we're going to go remote. It's a shortened day for our kids. The elementary students, basically, it's individual teachers sending out schedules in their Google Classroom, but it's basically 3 or 4 check-ins with their teacher over the course of the day that are short. They're 20 to 30 minutes in length. And then independent work. At the high school, middle school level, the day has been shortened by about 40 minutes, so each class is 45 minutes long. The middle school has like 4 classes, and the high school has 4.5. But, and the high school and middle school are delayed because if there's a true snow emergency or a weather emergency, we know that families and staff will have to get their lives in order prior to being able to start their instruction. So we're treating it like a 2-hour delay. So that's why the middle school and high school schedules start at 9:30 instead of 7:30 when we have a weather-related emergency. So there's a really good reason why we're going remote. We're not trying to steal the joy of snow days from our children. We're trying to ensure that they have their required 180 days. And if we're unable to stay open, we'll eventually have to start eating into our April break, the last extended break that we have, and students will have to come to school during April break, and I don't think the families would enjoy that either. None of us would, obviously. So we're trying to lessen the impact as best we can. I was on the text stream with the superintendents this afternoon having a discussion about what we're going to do tomorrow. More than half are going remote tomorrow, and the remainder are going to a traditional snow day. And I'll tell you right now, the people that are going to a traditional snow day are only able to do so because they have enough days left to do it. When they're out of days, they're going to be remote just as we are.
Brian, wasn't there a point where we were getting away from the 180 days and going by like hours? Did that not materialize, or did that get on hold because of the executive orders? What happened with that?
They made that change 2 years ago. It used to be 180 days, and you had to be in school 2.5 hours a day. So in other words, if the kids came in for half an hour and they went home, that's not a school day, or 2 hours or whatever. Then they changed the protocol. It's still 180 days. However, it's now 900 and 990. Elementary students need to be in school 900 hours of instruction a year. High school, middle school, 990 over the course of a year. So it gives schools more flexibility. For instance, we could have 10 half days over the course of a year, or 2-hour days, with no impact to our 180-day 990. Before, if we ever had a half day, it had to be a certain length, so we had like an hour and a half at the end of the day left over, to do parent conferences and things like that. So it didn't relieve us of the 180 days. And even during the pandemic, the governor was relentless, and the Board of Regents about 180. We still have to do 180. There has been no retreat from that mandate as yet. Going remote is what saves us. That's what I should have finished with. Being able to go virtual counts as a day of student attendance. Any other questions about the snow day? Last thing, we know that we've talked before about the generosity of our community, and we had some donations tonight. We have staff who volunteer in all of our buildings to help make the holiday brighter for families most in need, like a holiday wish. We don't have the actual checks yet, but we know that both Lafarge Wholesome and SABIC stepped up in a big way to help fund these programs for our students. Again, this year we'll be acknowledging that money when it comes in. We're able to do that at our next board meeting, but a few $1,000s that will be distributed for us to be able to give some cheer to families who we know may not have had any without it. So we'll be able to report out on how many families we're able to reach, but we have dozens of staff who are volunteering their time to help out with this. They're shopping, organizing, communicating with families, wrapping, and sending things out. And these local businesses and patrons who have donated so generously to pull it off. So I'm very, very grateful. We have a better place because of these folks. Thank you.
Okay, we will turn it over to Mr. Engelhardt.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I know it cut out last time. Okay. So since our last meeting, both of our elementary schools have either had some sort of remote instruction or partial remote instruction. So A.W. Becker, as we know, went fully remote right after Thanksgiving. Peter B. is currently remote for 4th grade only. And I just wanted to kind of give some feedback from the principals. They felt that, given the circumstances, Ms. Newbart felt that things went relatively smoothly. We were able to give devices right before Thanksgiving break because we had some sort of indication that it might be a possibility. And then Peter B., I just checked in with Mr. Jones today. He said that he was able to pop into a couple of the Google Meets and felt like things are going well. Students indicated and teachers that things are going well. So I just wanted to give some updates on that. What was encouraging this week is that I did get a lot of, to be honest, I reach out to folks at the beginning of the week to see if there's anything that they want to share with the Board of Education. And since September, it's been tough. I think folks have really had COVID as the forefront of their thinking. But this week, I just got an onslaught of folks who wanted to share some of the great things that actually felt like almost a typical normal year with some of the things that are going on in our district, which is really great. So one of the things is Selkirk, Manitoba, Canada, reached out through the Bethlehem Chamber of Commerce to reach out to A.W. Becker to participate in a holiday video that they're going to do. So Miss Newbar and Miss Lefevre, and those of you who know Miss Lefevre knows that she's up for everything. They stood in front of the Selkirk sign and gave a greetings to Manitoba, and then they included Mrs. Burns' kindergarten class. So there's going to be a feature video on Friday, December 18th at 8 o'clock. We're going to have stuff on the website for that, but it's kind of a cool holiday treat for our district to participate in. With that, just like Dr. Bailey said, we have a lot of folks who are volunteering during this time. Miss Ackert, who is one of the directors of our backpack program, wanted to say thank you to all of the staff at A.W. Becker, as well as the Delmar Bethlehem Ambulance Squad. Miss Abba, who was is a retired TA, she donated, all of those folks donated coats, hats, mittens. They were able to donate 18 coats, 17 pairs of snow pants, and 20 pairs of mittens and hats to families in need. So we just want to say thank you to them and for all the hard work that Miss Ackert did for that and organizing that. One of the things from Peter B that I wanted to just celebrate, Miss Doggett, who is our elementary CCS for reading and social studies, shared that, you know, small groups virtually have been tough for a little bit. To use Mr. McFerrin's metaphor, you know, we've been crawling a little bit, trying to get up and toddle and do some running. And this week there was a teacher who reached out that said they're having some really great success around virtual guided reading groups. Absolutely not the same, but they feel like it's being a lot more effective than they thought. So she wanted me to share that some good things are happening there. Ms. Jaskolka reached out. We are starting clubs, not starting clubs. They're actually a bunch already underway. And the Astronomy Club is really kicking off with, a lot of you might know, that Saturn and Jupiter are going to be kind of at the closest point. So a lot of, you know, stargazers are really excited. So they're going to do a virtual Great Conjunction star party on Monday, December 21st. So she is working with Miss Buckley right now to get the link on our website, and she's going to invite people to share pictures of the Great Conjunction. So it's going to be a lot of fun, great community reach out for that. So I'm excited. The other thing is middle school has been doing a lot with their own student leadership team. They've met for the second time. They had a lot of great success with their virtual assembly, so they're planning another one, and that's going to happen next week. An update with our fifth grade. As you know, we've been really trying diligently to get some in-person specials for them. We at our elementary level haven't really been able to do STEAM, but fifth grade has found a way. So they are doing weekly STEAM labs, which they're really excited about. And then also, we've been trying to get feedback from teachers, students, families. And so the middle school is going to do a parent focus group right before their PTSO at their next meeting, which is on January 20th. So they're looking at possibly doing some sort of virtual parent university, giving some sort of tips and tricks to families on how to really support kids during remote learning and some of the things that are going on at home. You know that we have a huge farm to school grant. We've been meeting monthly with a great diverse group of community members and staff members and even students. And we decided to kick off with a logo contest. So Miss Cole, who is our fax teacher at the high school, put out a contest, and we had 3 winners. We had, I'm hoping I'm not going to butcher last names here, but Annie Quillen, Jenna Grogan, and Carissa Zafke. They were our 3 finalists. So their logos are now going to go off to Miss Wallace's, who is our art teacher, her graphic design course, and they're going to, according to Miss Cole, she's used the word zhuzh them up a little bit, and then they're going to come back to the committee for some final voting. So congratulations to them. It's a lot of great energy around that committee, and we're looking forward to doing some maybe virtual cooking classes and some other really great things with that committee. The high school, Dr. Bailey shared about the parade, but Dr. Paterni also wanted me to share, in addition to clubs already underway, they want to do a virtual club fair as a way to recruit more students, really as I know we've talked about, the social aspect of what our students are missing is so important. So to try to get some more active engagement in that as well. So teachers, advisors of those clubs are going to do Loom videos and share what the club is about. If it's not up today, I know they were trying to get it on our website today. If it's not up today, then it should be by the end of the week. So we're excited about that as well. Lots of really great spirit things happening this week. So pajama days, character days, ugly sweater days. So keep an eye out for that. I'm sure as you kind of pat your children either remotely or physically out the door, they'll be wearing something kind of crazy for this coming week. So I could go on, but I think I'll stop there for tonight.
All right, thank you. We will turn it over to Mrs. Moran. Yeah, at least once a meeting, we got to tell her to turn the mic on.
Sorry about that. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
What I wanted to just show everybody right now is the funding where we are with our capital project. Mind you, before I started here in October of 2015, you had been out to vote prior to that, and you approved a $31.2 million capital project and referendum. 1.2 million was going to come from a capital reserve, and the rest would be either borrowed monies or what have you. So phase one, well, that was A and B. We wrapped that up a couple years ago, was $10,306,000. Phase two to date, right now, we're at $18.8 million. We want to go through that. I want to touch base on it. We've talked about it. It's kind of been like a sleeping dog right now, an angry dog a little bit, but we are wrapping it up. We are getting to that point where we are wrapping it up and finalizing everything, getting through those things we aren't happy with. And we'll talk about those things in future meetings. I wanted to point out, remember, we worked very hard to get those NYSERDA funds. And when we did this project in phase two, we broke it out and we had a whole bunch of alternates. And we did that because we didn't know what we were going to be able to afford. And one of them, we broke out a piece of the middle school locker room ventilation system, so we could target that for the NYSERDA grant or the monies that were assigned to this district long before I got here. And one of those things, and we were a dog with a bone with that. We did win. We got Matt Brown with NYSERDA. Brian worked tirelessly with him, as we all did, and we did get that money. So that goes back into the pot, so to speak. So we have about $2.3 million, which is roughly, I believe, about where we thought we'd end up. Oh, sorry about that. And what I wanted to talk about was not to alarm anybody with John Sharkey talking about capital projects today, because I think what's more important of what John Sharkey can do for us is assist this district with a long-range plan. That's what we need. We need a long-range financial plan. We're working on it, and as well as a facilities plan. So again, what he's going to help us do is finalize that phase three, the scope and the budget. I don't think it's that far off. The news that he came back with today from Sigrid and facilities planning is phenomenal. We originally thought we wouldn't be able to start phase three because we were thinking we wouldn't even get anything final from them until March. So that would be great if we could turn that around rather quickly so we could get the lion's share of the work done in this coming summer. We are working, as we all know, on the building condition survey. That's ready. He had to have the work done in December. He's accomplished that. It'll be submitted in March. And then again, as Dr. Bailey spoke earlier, it now becomes the process of committee work around a long-range facilities plan and to identify what it is that this district needs to do. And it doesn't have to be next year or in 2 years, but we have to come up with a plan on where we're going and how are we going to get there with bricks and mortar, whether it's to improve our instructional program, put a roof on, windows, energy conservation, all of those things. And I believe that with committee work, an architect working with us side by side, it'll be very easy for us to identify what needs to be done. And we're getting through that and be able to discuss with the Board of Education and the community. How long does that take? What's the timeline? What is the lion's share? I have Janine Caruso Rogers from Fiscal Advisors working on what the capital, what any capital project we do, what's the local share going to be, because we are entering some fiscally challenging times right now. I think state aid, there's still, believe it or not, I was just talking to state aid planning yesterday. There is still no set budgetary figure. The feelings are they're going to drag it out until March, and we're going to probably, it's been suggested that we use state aid figures back on the 14-15 level and what we got then, and don't bank on any more. So again, it's going to be a little bit challenging, but again, having Mr. Sharkey talk about future capital projects is not to, make people nervous or we're rushing it. It's not done to do that at all. It's just to put everything in place that we need to do and to move forward. And again, whether it's an emergency thing that needs to get done immediately or something that we just know we're going to have to do. So again, the only thing I think that we may see that will come up sooner will be this May. We will do a restructuring for that capital reserve so we can extend its life, increase its limit, and make the most out of any dollars that we do have. It's going to be a challenging year. We're trying to close out phase 2. We're close. We'll talk about that with the board and executive in the middle of January. And the budget and everything else we're trying to do, stay above water. It seems like we spend a lot of time in a hamster wheel lately. That's how it feels, I think. But I just wanted to go through that with everybody. So, and that's it.
So the 14-15 year, you didn't get a large amount of funding. Is that why did they say 14-15?
No, they just want to drop it back to that level because that's what they're assuming it's going to be like going in. Because there's nothing right. They're saying if you drop 20% of our aid is what they're saying now, that would bring us back to about the 14-15 year. And nobody knows what to do as far as state aid. And if they drag it out, it's going to be painful. Does anybody else have any other questions? We got a crew ready to come in and do snow tomorrow, so that's exciting. That's all I have.
Okay. Great. November Treasurer's Report for review only. Anyone have any new business they'd like to discuss?
I don't really know if this is new or old business, but is there any update on the yearbook situation, especially for the seniors?
See, I didn't open my mouth until I unmuted. I believe that the senior class, the group that's working with the senior class is including that in their discussions about how they memorialize this group. I had an interesting discussion with one of the people in the other buildings that they described the challenges of trying to do what they traditionally did in the spring, and that it was a near impossibility, and they didn't want to have anything to do with it again because, usually you have hundreds of pictures of kids in action doing stuff, and it's virtually been taken away because you have students spaced working at laptops or Chromebooks. You have some PE. You do have some athletics now, and we do have some clubs, but they're all virtual. So the limited content is problematic. So I still think that you're going to see more of a reinvention of what that looks like rather than the traditional one. The other thing that they mentioned is the cost becomes prohibitive because, as we know, I mean, a yearbook, even 30 years ago, a yearbook was $35, $40, and the printing price has gone down. Thankfully, printing price has gone down over the years, except it becomes how many you're going to produce, and the cost goes up because of limited runs too. So they're still thinking about it, and it's in with that mix of other celebrations.
Okay. One of the reasons I was wondering is because I don't know if anybody else got it, but I got an email from the yearbook company asking me to order the yearbook for $30.
Yeah.
Something was.
Yeah, my sister mother-in-law also received the same thing for her child, and I'm pretty sure she put in an order until I told her I didn't even know if we were having them.
Yeah.
That was high school age, Kristen, and
Yep. Yes.
yeah.
She has a senior.
Yeah.
Okay. They may have decided to go that route, but I would hate to think that cart is out in front of the horse.
Okay.
Is that something?
$30 is good though.
Is that
That's what I
something, Brian, that we could put on our new business to take a look at to make sure that we understand where we're at and what the plan is?
Sure.
Just so that we're united in understanding what's going on. And I think in the last meeting, we were asking if we could explore options, at least for the senior class,
Yep.
to ensure whether or not we could get them a yearbook, because no senior should go without a yearbook,
Yep.
in my opinion.
Yeah. I appreciate you asking that question on a couple levels, but it inadvertently reminded me the Colonial Council made a decision to move forward with bowling and swimming, both of which with the highest level of safety in mind. We are only going to allow anything to occur with the same levels of safety that we use during the rest of the school day. So I wanted you to know that those two sports right now are in play. They're in practice. But they will only be able to proceed if they're following all the social distancing and safety protocols we follow during the day. We're grateful to be able to do the two. Swimming is talking about 100% virtual swim meets. So in other words, the two teams do it simultaneously in their own pools. So they do the heats in their own pools and they, take the best time. And from what they've described of bowling, I haven't seen it in person, but the teams are kept in their cohort and they're kept away from each other on different lanes in the bowling alley. All winter, all state level winter championships have been canceled. And at this rate, all high risk sports have continued to be indefinitely postponed. Sorry, I didn't mention that earlier.
Brian, with our reimagining how snow days happen, is there an impact to those two sports if we are not considered closed but remote for the day? And if they have an event that day, would they be doing it?
That's a great question, Bill, because this is uncharted territory in so many ways. If we're closed due to a snow emergency, we would go to our fallback that we would always go to. If it's unsafe for our children to be transported to school, it's unsafe for our students to be transported to a sporting event. I mean, and the sun comes out at noon and everyone's like, everything's fine. We should be able to do whatever we want. But we have to remember we have facilities that are being maintained and cleared sometimes all the way through the evening, depending on how bad storms were. Sometimes the buildings aren't accessible. Sometimes staff aren't available. So I think, Joanne, that's in line, right? We've canceled anything when we've closed due to an emergency like that, right? Snow emergencies?
Yeah, that is correct. We've always, the facilities have been closed. So we'll have to be very clear on that when we put our message out.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that we just go very basic and just explaining that if our criteria are that if we're closed, if the high school is closed or the schools, but we're acting remotely, all extracurriculars would also be off for that day.
You're smart, Bill, because every year we end up revisiting this because something happens. A club comes in, does something, or a sport comes in, does something, or the play or something. It's great memory. And this year, it's a totally new rule, so totally new event. So there's another way for people to accidentally fall through their cracks. It's a great reminder.
Okay. Do we have any other new business or old business that anyone would like to discuss?
I was just going to ask about the Chromebook cases. I know that some have been distributed. Are we going to get them out to all recipients of the Chromebooks?
We did all elementary students at this point. That was it was our chance to. We very nearly had it perfectly too. We had that stupid early snow day. That was the day before we were going to distribute. But at any rate, we distributed them to the students at the elementary level, and we frankly internally haven't decided what's going to be most appropriate for those middle and high schoolers. We know that they're more readily available now, but the high schoolers, in some of our discussions, we think that they're actually going to resist. They're not going to want to use it because they already have a plan. In your experience with your children in school right now, what do you think would be best for them? What do you think would work best for them?
They'll do what I tell them to do. Again, I'm thinking about this from an investment from the school district perspective, and how can we best protect the Chromebooks that we are, issuing out to our students. So maybe I think about this a little bit differently. Until they're paying rent to me and buying food, I get to make the rules.
Yeah,
that is true.
I mean, it wasn't too long ago that you lost a letter grade if you didn't have your hard textbook covered with brown
No,
paper.
you remember that? You had the paper bag and you had to arts and crafts it. That's before we had ready access to duct tape too. That would have made a world of difference, I think. And we circled around with Bill on that, and to date, so we have 1,200. Let's see, we have 1,200 new ones, and we have about 2,100 deployed Chromebooks right now. Since we've done that in March, he's had about 24 broken, and the ones that have been broken aren't ones that seem to have been broken in transit. They were broken at home. Someone put something in the lid and closed it. Someone stepped on it while it was at home, or they've had a few broken screens and a lot of other malfunctioning batteries and things like that. So I was surprised. You wouldn't think that that's how things would turn out. But so far, it doesn't seem to be transit-related damage.
I think the true test will be at the end of the year, right?
Sure.
Or whenever we decide to collect them back or whatever, there'll be an understanding of how well they were protected, either at home or in transit.
Well, the good news, we got two things at play. One is the spot check for anyone who's actually coming to school. If they're not in class with a device, the teachers know. We won't probably be taking them back. And we haven't talked about this, but what most schools do is they actually take the device back from seniors, or they take them back from the students whose Chromebooks have aged out. It's 5 to 6 years for a device. So in other words, if you inherit a Chromebook in 8th grade, that's your device until you graduate. That's the way schools that have a Chromebook deployment work with one-to-one. Bill and I haven't talked about that, but that's a good question as to how we'd want to proceed. But we will, and we'll let you know.
Good. We have no BOE committee reports. We have no policy adoptions, but we do have a hearing and or petitions. So we're going to have to call in.
So we have hearings and petitions from Amy Schermerhorn. I'll wait until she's on the line to describe the reason that she wants to address the board. Okay, just a second.
Come on.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, Amy. It's Brian Bailey in the Board of Education.
Hi, how are you?
Well, thank you. I'm just going to give the board a quick introduction as to why you reached out with a description of
Okay.
what was in your email, and then Mr. Reveley's going to talk to you about hearings and petitions, and then we'll let you address the board. Amy reached
Okay.
out earlier, and in her email, she had stated that she wanted to talk about the social wellness of our students, especially related to them working with computers all day, on computers all day, and she had some suggestions for the board. And Mr. Reveley?
Okay, just a couple of quick things that we just want to remind you are, one, we try to limit each comment session to 3 minutes, and any comments that are directed to the board, a member of the district staff will respond after the Board of Ed meeting with any appropriate answers that you may be looking for. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I contacted the board in the regards to the social emotional well-being of the students. Many of the students are working on a tiny computer screen for a good 5 hours a day, and they don't get a chance to really talk with their friends. There's not an awful lot of socialization, which is affecting their emotional states as well. As far as I know, there's no extracurriculars where they could even remotely meet up with their friends. When I am able to be home with my kids, which I am not usually here because I have to work, what I'm hearing is not, hey, how you doing? Or just a little bit of small talk that you might hear in the school. It's a lot of the teachers teaching. We could do some things after school, like a remote or virtual talent shows, virtual art shows, book shares, using Think, Pair, Share in the Google breakout rooms, doing the Buddies program, Big Brothers, Big Sisters kind of thing. There's things that we can do to help the social emotional piece for the kids, so the kids are getting some sort of socialization. I think if we don't address that, we're going to have an awful lot of kids who want to drop out. That's one of my biggest fears.
We, Amy, it's Brian. We spent a little time talking tonight about some of those topics as well.
Oh, that's good. That is good to hear.
I think it's appropriate for us to follow up with you.
Okay.
And we can continue the conversation. I think there are some things that we can identify that would be helpful in the way that, in the things that you've described.
Thank you.
Teddy, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you for joining us, and we'll definitely pass on the information, and Dr. Bailey or someone from administration will get back in touch with you.
Thank you very much for giving me some time.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Thanks.
Upcoming activities. Our next BOE meeting will be in the new year, January 6th, 2021. I'm assuming on this same station. We have no reason to go back to executive session, and I need a motion to adjourn.
Me.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Everyone have a nice holiday.
Yeah, have a great holiday.
Happy holidays, everybody.